Welcome to another episode of the Playful Lens. In this episode, Dr. Joanna Fortune talks to us about little things we can do to increase our own playfulness as adults. And she also talks about the immense value there is in joy and fun for nurturing relationships. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Playful Lens. We are so delighted to be speaking to Dr. Joanna Fortune. Joanna, thank you so much for speaking to us, and you are so welcome to the Playful Lens.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to talk to you, but especially about such an important topic that means so much to me, and I know it does to you guys as well. So I think it's great to give it this space.
Thank you. And would you like to tell our listeners who you are and why
Yeah.
play means so much to you?
Yeah, so I'm Joanna Fortune. I'm a psychotherapist, and I work in adult mental health as well as child and adolescent mental health, but primarily in a clinical context, my work increasingly is dyadic, which means it's with the caregiver and the child in the room at the same time, and really exploring how the relationship between caregiver and child is the play space and is the catalyst for behavioral change. So really digging into that connection to get correction kind of idea. As well as clinical work, I supervise, I train therapists, I do talks and events, and I do the parenting slot on a Wednesday on News Talk FM and a column for the Irish Examiner every Tuesday. I'm a mixed bag. I do a bit of everything.
So you're a busy lady, and do you have to play in your own life?
Isn't that always the thing, when you play for a living, when it's your job, and when you get home, none of us want to keep working, but it's a little bit different with play. And I think what I find is I believe I play differently at home than I do when I'm working. And I play differently when it's for me versus when it's child oriented about my child. But if I'm thinking about what I need, when I feel that playful itch that I'm like, I need something for me, that's different again. And I think that's something that we probably should explore, is that play isn't this one stagnant method. It is different in different aspects of our lives, different relationships in our lives. And just as we're different, I'm different at work, I'm different at home, I'm different with my friends. So it stands to reason. And that's what I love about play, actually, is that it fuels and enables that level of flexibility and adaptability that in and of itself is the essence of good mental health and staying mentally healthy, moreover.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. There's so much to that, Joanna. Our role as teachers has changed recently, as our curriculum has. And I suppose we're required to be more playful professionals. And something I didn't realize until a number of years ago was that play is really important for us as grown-ups, for everyone, for all
Yes.
adults. This isn't for some people, it's for everyone. So can you help us frame what play would look like, might look like for us grown-ups? Because I know that the more I play in my life
Yeah.
and the more I bring in that joy, that is going to have a huge impact on my relationships, be that my relationships with my family or relationships with children in my class. So could you help us maybe
Yeah.
understand that a little bit?
I think that's such a beautiful way to put it, and it really speaks to what I understand as that playful state of mind. That play isn't the beautiful box, and it's not those gorgeous shelves in a play therapy room with lots of little miniatures. All of that is lovely and important, and it's a form of play, but those little props enable play to happen. They're not the play themselves. The play is the expression, and I think in adulthood, and it's really interesting. I mean, there's quite limited research, interestingly, about play in the life of adults, but it has been a large focus in my own doctoral work and writing up as well. But when I wrote my first book, I think it was 2017 when I wrote it. It might have been more 2018 when it came out. And I remember putting in there a little piece about, in your intimate partner relationship, how to be playful. And I mean playful without intimate agenda, just playful. And I remember at the time, people like, I mean, I get it, but I could never do that. And I don't think that would work. And then, and just a few years later, I remember my publisher commissioning an entire book from me on play in the life of adults. And to see such a dramatic shift in the understanding and the appetite for that in those few short years was quite something to behold. And I do think, and you see increasingly, if you're on social media, you'll see this whole idea of bubble breaks. I've been talking about adults taking bubble breaks in work for such a long time, for decades. And now you see these videos and they're out there and people are saying, well, if you're not taking a smoke break, take a bubble break, and taking out the bottle of bubbles, what would have been, going for a different kind of break. And I just think it's that normalizing of play in the life of adults that is creeping in. I don't think it's mainstream, but it's creeping in. And I love to see it because play has that important role across the trajectory of our lives, from the cradle right through to the grave, start of life to end of life. And how we play, that's going to change and evolve and develop. But the fact that we play and that we need to play, that doesn't go. What tends to happen is that as we reach independent adulthood, when you're finished with education and you're in your first job, whatever that might be, whenever that might be, seriousness of life takes over. And arguably it serves us well, at least in the short term. You're ambitious and career oriented and you're putting in the hours and getting ahead. But it's when you lose that playfulness for a prolonged period of time that you begin to see the impact. And it often manifests initially with, and I think we've all had this to some extent, that general feeling of just that bit of stuckness, in your life where you feel like, I don't really know what's wrong, but I'm fed up or I just don't feel it. I always think, at least for me, that is a clear indication that I have forgotten to play. That is like a huge warning sign that ick, that's mehness that creeps in is evidence that the need to play, the drive for play has been neglected and something else in a more frenetic, active mobilization pace has taken over. So that for me would be the first thing that I go, okay, I need to stop this and I need to turn my attention somewhere else and do something else. So we do see that play, just as it is a neural activity and a relational activity for children, continues to have that function into adulthood. And what we do know from the limited research that is out there is that adults who experience a high, moderate to high level of playfulness in their adult relationships, that could be intimate partner, but that could be adult siblings, that could be being the adult child of aging parents, do report more relationship satisfaction, do generally say, I experience more contentment, stronger connection, and an overall sense of self that is a better level. So less tension, less rouse. We do see those kind of correlations that come in relationships. And that makes a lot of sense to me because if play is a relational activity, we would expect it to have that effect in relationships as well. I really think though, and I'd be interested what you think on this as well, is that our definition of play tends to be so narrow that it sees play as relegated to that realm of childhood. And there's no argument of how important play is for children, but we forget that if we are to playfully bid to connect with children, I'm thinking of changes to the curriculum and that drive for more play-based learning. And, so much is put on teachers already. Could you do this? Could you cover that? Could you cover all kinds of life skills? All in there with the academic curriculum. And I never want play to feel for educators that here's yet another thing I have to do in my already packed workload, because then it becomes performative, doesn't it? It becomes, better get the play face on, better do the play stuff. And it becomes like an obligation. And play can't work like that because then it's not relational, it's not connection based. And children can feel that. They know that you're faking it. And this isn't one of those fake it till you make it situations. You have to be authentic. But I also think we have to be very understanding that for many adults, the idea of going in and playing with a room full of children, that's a big ask. That's a lot. And to presume it without saying, and here's the program of play we're going to put you through so that you really reconnect with that side of yourself. We've all been there. We've all been playful at some point in our lives. It will look and sound differently, but we've all experienced that. But it might be a while since you flexed your play muscles, and you wouldn't go back to the gym 5 days a week if you hadn't been for quite a while. You'd ease yourself in. And I do think there's some part of the play process that's being short-circuited in the assumption or expectation that just go in and playfully teach maths.
That's really interesting. And what I find really interesting about what you were just saying there is that, obviously we're talking about teachers and bringing that playfulness into the classroom, but you're talking about adults. So this is not just limited to to teachers. It's all adults. And
Absolutely.
that playfulness that we all need to develop. Yes, obviously we're looking at it through the lens of teachers, but it's so interesting. It's just resonating. I'm thinking of other people in my own life who aren't teachers, who are playful or maybe aren't playful. And it's so interesting, that perspective of the playful adult. I love that. And one of my favorite quotes on play is your quote that play is not just a box of toys. It is a state of mind and a way of being. And it's so true, isn't it?
It is, and it's something that Donald Winnicott, a British child psychoanalyst, would have said. I think around the 70s in his book Playing and Reality, he talks about the difference between the act of playing and playful, and he differentiates between that play is something that we do.
Yes.
And it's not something we should seek to over intellectualize, and that's the state of mind that it has to be something that we feel. You can be playful in how you say good morning to somebody. You can be playful in how you share a cup of tea. Playfulness is a way of being. And I think but also I do think what you were saying there is so interesting, because I do think that without exception, everybody is more playful than they give themselves credit for.
Yeah.
It's just, if you say play is, the paint splattered overalls and the wacky hair and the funky, and you're like, great, but that's one form of whimsical play, and that is a play trait, a play personality, and Stuart Brown writes extensively about these. But if you are somebody who's more playful with concepts and ideas and abstract notions, and you're somebody who loves nothing more than Wordle or a puzzle or Sudoku and all of those things, you're intellectually playful, but that is your play space. So, and that is very often neglected. Or somebody who collects a beautiful anything, doesn't matter what it is, it's your collection and you've got it and it's set up and it's perfect and it's complete and you derive pleasure and joy from that. You're a very collector type of playful person. So I think understanding your playful tendencies and your playful personality traits puts you back in touch with, I never thought that was play. Maybe I am playful. And then now I can think, that means I'm capable of playing. And now suddenly I'm more open to fresh thinking and new perspective on something I thought was like, oh, I'm not going to come in and do that. I'm not the wacky type of person. I couldn't do that. So I do think, that if you don't start at the path of greatest resistance, I always think when I'm privileged to talk quite a bit to adults about play as well, is don't start with the thing that makes you get the biggest ick. Don't, because you're setting yourself up to fail. Like, start somewhere where you're like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And if I do that and I embed that as a practice, I can grow that from there, and I can push myself a little, not a lot, but a little beyond into something new. Or thinking about the things that you loved to do as a child. And how long is it since you've gotten to do something like that? And is there a way that you could reconnect, maybe not with that exact thing, but something like that? Now, I think that's a really good place to start.
You've given us loads of guidance, because one of the things I was going to ask you earlier, if I'm feeling a bit fed up, I'm stuck, and play is a million miles away, even though you have told us this is important, this is really good for your health. I was saying, so how do I get from this fed up state to being to reconnecting with my playfulness? But you've given us little hints there. You've said,
I do. And I think it's simple things. Like, sometimes I say things and I'm like, gosh, that's really like entry level. And someone's like, no, couldn't do that. But you could take a playful walk. You could get out and go for a walk. You can put your earphones in if you want, but you don't have to. And if you go for a playful walk and you make sure you're going to make eye contact and say hello to people that you pass along the way, no earphones is your help there. But equally, you could say, before you leave the house, every time I see a red car, I'm going to do a little hop. That's it. And nobody's going to know what you're doing. Nobody cares what you're doing. But as you go around your walk, you see, there's the red car. And you keep going then like nothing happened. And you give yourself a little giggle and you give yourself a little like, nobody knows what I'm doing but me. But it keeps you anchored into the now moments as well. Because when you walk and your mind starts wandering and ruminating on all of the things you're trying to avoid, it's a bit of a, in mindfulness and meditation, there's a thing called bird practice, where if you go out for a walk and to stop your mind wandering from the now. Every time you hear a bird, you say, I hear a bird. And it just pulls you back into the now. But if you are walking in a more urban area, I mean, the chances of you hearing a bird are maybe not as frequent as seeing a red car. So it's just, and the little playful hop just gives you that bit of dipping your toe into it. And I also think starting with something subtle that you can do at home, and and something that's quite sensory, because that takes you out of your busy head into that kind of embodied presence of now. And I like to do the ice cube thing as a practice, where you get your ice cube tray and I put a little piece of Lego in each of the compartments, fill it with water, freeze it, and every day, maybe it depends on if you're living alone, do it yourself. If you live with people, bring them all in on it, so make lots of ice. But you get a basin or a small baking bowl of tepid water, so barely lukewarm. And you take an ice cube, you can do one hand or two, and you feel that ice on your skin, and immediately it changes the sensory experience. And then submerge your hands into that bowl, and you just have to hold them there. You've got ice in your skin, and your skin in warm, lukewarm water. And now you have to wait. Delayed gratification, impulse control, slowing yourself down, coming out of your busy head. And then you get the little Lego blocks when the ice melts, and you can just attach them. And if you repeat that daily, and you keep adding your Lego blocks as you go, you build something, you create something over the course of the week. And if it's a collaborative project, if it's with your family or housemates or whoever you live with, but equally it's something you can do on your own, and you don't have to explain that or contextualize it, you just do it. Those are smaller things that you can do, and you make a commitment. I will do my ice cubes every day. And that's going to take you a few minutes, but you're making a conscious choice.
Yeah.
That I'm going to make sure I build a bit of playfulness in here.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
such a
that.
lovely activity. It really is. It's
Yeah.
really, and very simple, as you say. It's
So
just
simple.
and so sensory. We've actually started, we have two little boys, 7 and 2, and we've started going for a walk every evening after dinner with the torches, and we go
Lovely.
leaves. And it's actually our 2-year-old. It's always him, and he says, "Can we go for the walk with the torches?" But my hubby and I actually both love it too, and it's just
Yes.
lovely 20 minutes.
But
As
it's so important, because you're changing not only the field of vision, what you've all been looking at all day, but your physical environment.
Yeah.
And going out for a walk in the dark, it's a bit exciting.
Oh, I love
So
it.
you're bringing in that bit of like adrenaline as well. And it feels like an adventure with the
And it does
torches.
reconnect you. Like, I only said to my husband this evening, I said, I remember being a child and loving being out in the dark.
Yeah.
There's something like,
There
I
is.
should be at home. I should be in bed or something, even though it's only 7:30 or
But
7:00.
it feels adventurous.
So
Yeah.
lovely. And, our two little boys going around with the torch, and they're shining on different things and up in the trees. And
Yeah.
we actually, I think we love it more than they do now. It's so lovely.
But that's the
It's
stuff
just
that
a little
kids
routine now.
remember. We invest in these huge things for them, but it's those experiences they remember because they're relational. And I
Yes.
think that's what it comes back to. When our children say to us, play with me, we're going, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. What they're really saying is connect with me, but they don't have the emotional fluency to say, I've missed you today. We've been separated for a prolonged period of time, and I've had a lot of microaggressions to deal with on the schoolyard, and gaining dojo points and losing dojo points. And I've got all of that, but I just need to connect with you. And when they say play with me, that's what they're saying. They're
Yeah.
inviting us in. And it's in that connection, even if it's, as I would always say, even if it's that ring fence 15 minutes, but if it's that time, you become very predictable for your child. And when you're predictable, you feel safe. And then it has to feel safe to play, to properly play. I don't mean just play a little bit with a device or that, but if to really play, you have to have relational safety. But somebody who's predictable, and I can anticipate with certainty that when I say play with me, you will play with me. You feel safe. I trust you. We have a strong connection. And within that connection and through that play, I'm giving you my day. You don't have to ask me. It's happening here. And I'm giving it to you, and I'm inviting you into my world. And it's precious because they won't always do that with us.
Yeah, I know. I'm dreading the day they stop asking me to play. Joanna, can I come back to something that you said? So you were talking about flexing your play muscles, and that you wouldn't go to the gym 5 days a week if you haven't been doing that. And you mentioned that there is something missing there in that circuit. So either for teachers or for parents who want to reflex their play muscles, like, what advice would you give How do we fix that short circuiting, and how do we reconnect with that playfulness, either as a teacher or as a parent?
Yeah, I think it starts with being quite conscious about, I want to do this. And then it's about looking at what areas in my life can I make more playful without seeking to add a new, I got to sign up to a 10-week course to, no, you don't. Like maybe it's that you travel to work on a bus, a Lewis, a Dart, whatever, a train, whatever it is, and you're not going to put your earphones in and you're not going to scroll your phone. I know, crazy, but you're not going to scroll your phone. You are going to look out a window and you're just going to let your mind wander. You're going to notice things, see things. When you do, it'll form a connection. It will evoke a memory. It will remind you of a time when, and you're just going to free associate, just let your mind wander. You are going to be open to somebody saying hello or a random transient connection with somebody on public transport. Sometimes I think we could reroute to reboot, that we walk a different direction to work and notice what's on this pathway, what shops, what sounds, what people, what noises, where do you cross the road different? Like any change like that is bringing in curiosity. It really can be this small when you're starting to re-engage with this. If you go to a coffee shop regularly and it's a place where they love to stick your name on the cup or whatever, give them a different name and adopt a different persona for the duration of your latte being made, adopt an accent, a voice, a little backstory in your head, a different walk, a different attitude, and then go out the door and be yourself again. And it took all of 3 to 5 minutes, but you played and it was a role play, which normally brings out like shivers in people when you mention role play as an adult. But, there's all of these ways that you start so small. And then you think, what did I love doing? Like I'm thinking of teachers as well, like think of what's on your pathway to the school door. Is it a hopscotch? And could you hopscotch over it instead of just walking through it or around it? Could you just hopscotch? That you just go in and do that. And already you don't have to think, God, I have to play. You've done it. You're already playing. And if the kids see you doing that, they'll think it's a hoot, So you're also then eliciting that joyful connection, because this is what play does. It's relational. So it offers the opportunity for shared joy, because joy isn't something that I just have myself. If I grow up into an adult who is capable of experiencing joy in life and other people and things, it's because at some point in my life, probably early on, I experienced being enjoyed by somebody, and it taught me that I'm enjoyable and that I enjoyed that, and it puts me in pursuit of joy. Children learn best when they have that type of connection with their teachers. And, there's studies that back that's not just me being idealistic or romanticizing, but when children feel a connection with their teachers, with their educators, outcomes are better. And children want to please, but also they feel safe in that trust-based connection. And so they're more open to your influence and to things. And I do think that the student-teacher relationship is a really, really important one. Just as I think relationship between teachers and parents are really important as well, because it is showing our children that we're in it together and that it's a collaborative approach, and we all want this for you. And it stops that kind of splitting that can happen with children who behave one way in school and one way at home, when there is that more joined up approach. I think it creates a better sense of community, and children thrive within the containment of a healthy community. So I do think there's a lot that can be done subtly, simply, with no financial investment. And I think that's really important. To be playful shouldn't cost you anything.
Yes, I totally agree.
And it's a gift. It's a gift for us to reconnect with our own playfulness.
Yeah.
From listening to you there, because there is so much focus now on the teacher-pupil relationship, and it's paramount importance. But we don't often value the joy. And what I usually say is the joy is like super glue. It's like it strengthens the bond. It's the laugh, fun together. So like we really need to think about how can we prioritize that when we're talking about building relationships with children.
We need to stop telling teachers not to smile till Christmas. That doesn't bring any fun. That doesn't bring any joy if you don't smile till Christmas.
No, it's so true though. It is. And I think it creates that shared joy because, I think the job of a teacher is incredibly challenging, just to be really clear about that. But I think children are better able to take the consequences or the, limit setting and the boundaries when they have that connection, because they know, that concept of constancy in early childhood where I you want your child growing up that they know you love them. And even if you're cross about what they did, the love is constant.
Yeah.
So they begin to know that I am still loved, even though I'm in really big trouble.
Yeah.
Because my behavior is what got me in trouble, but I, the person, am still loved and lovable. And I can separate out who I am from what I've done. And that's so important in terms of mental health and well-being going forward. It is. But I also think in a classroom where there is playful connection, children know they can be in trouble. They can have gotten it wrong. They could have been talking and not paying attention and, whatever it might be. And their teacher can be frustrated with their behavior and cross and consequence and give out or give a sticker, take away. All of that stuff can happen. But I know you still are glad I'm in your class, and I know you'll still welcome me back tomorrow, and I know you still care about me. It doesn't mean I'm not in trouble, but I can take that because we have the connection.
The
Yeah.
bond is there.
It is, yeah.
And what you said about when I'm enjoyed, I know I'm enjoyable. And I suppose when I started teaching infants, I wouldn't have been very playful. I was a typical, traditional mentor, maybe is
Yeah.
what it was. We're straight
Wild
to
till
boom, boom.
Christmas.
We do the work to do. We're busy. We'd obviously have a bit of fun, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been a priority. And so when play came in and playing with children came in, I found it really difficult.
Mm,
It's so reassuring to know that we're with experts in play when we're with children. And to
absolutely.
be able to sit down and enjoy them is
Yeah.
a gift. So even if I'm not the type of teacher who's cracking jokes and
Mhm.
who's happy with a puppet on my arm or can make up the silly stuff, if I'm the type of teacher who, when they're doing that free play, trial play especially, I can just pay attention and enjoy them and
Yeah.
learn from them. You know, there's loads of value in that.
And it means that it's that step out. And I think it's hard actually as parents, as teachers, I think it's hard to step out of I'm in charge and to actually hand it over to them and say, you guide me. I'll follow your lead. I think that's actually quite hard to do because you're like, well, are we doing it right? And is this really how it should go? And weren't we having a picnic? Where did those aliens come from? Is that realistic? It stops us fact checking the play and just rolling with it because
Yeah.
anything is possible. And it also gives us that insight into what's going on for them. How do they view the world and people in it? And a child who might struggle in more classical learning
Yeah.
can really show strength and really show something that you maybe didn't know about them or see about them if you sat and played with them. You could say, wow, you've got amazing ideas.
Yeah.
And then that puts you in pursuit of how can I draw those out of you when we're talking about history or when it really gives you that curiosity. And I think that's, in mentalization, which is just a fancy word for something you do all day and no one ever says, lovely mentalization there. It's more when it doesn't happen. But that idea of being able to hold somebody else's mind in mind. I think as a parent, it's hard enough because you're trying to hold mind in mind and juggle schedule. And in a classroom, you could have, I'd optimistically say 24, but we all know in some classrooms it could be 30, 32.
Yeah.
Little minds that you've to hold in mind while
Yeah.
staying on task and bringing them with you. That is a massive monumental task. So when you get to kind of say, you show me, you're able to get a read on them in a different way and it gives you insight. But once you stay curious, because I always think we underestimate the power of curiosity. And as therapists, we always wonder rather than ask, because wondering gives you a story, it gives you a narrative, a time when, a relational episode. Asking gives you yes, no, not sure, gives you those closed responses. And when we are curious, we're playful. A curious mind is a playful mind. When you're wondering, you're playful. As
Yeah.
soon as you say to someone, I wonder how that feels. I wonder what would happen next. Or you're reading a story and you decide I'm going to close it. You all get to write the ending of the story. I wonder what happens next. Even if it's Red Riding Hood and they all know it, it doesn't matter. They now get to make up something else. And it's still keeping you within the structure, within the framework of the lesson,
Yeah.
but you're being flexible and adaptable, bending without breaking to bring the playfulness in.
Oh, I love that, because even if I am somebody who is really removed from my playfulness, we can all say, I wonder. We can all
Exactly.
do
there.
that. Yeah. As you say, it's those tiny little bits of playfulness, and that's definitely somewhere that I think most teachers could start.
Yeah.
Stop asking questions and start wondering instead.
And you could double wonder if you want. You wonder, and whatever they say, wonder about what they say. And then you're bringing them deeper into it as well. And I mean, brace yourself, because if you double wonder with kids, God knows what you're going to get. But, it'll be fantastic and it will be amazing. And I think, just as we have good days and bad days, kids have good days and bad days, and they've come from busy homes and mornings, and they've come from where maybe they got in trouble before they left home, and they're coming in with that little cloud over their head that we didn't see and we didn't get to know. We just see what's with the attitude. So if you just respond to the symptom of the behavior, you're missing the story of what that is. I always think with children that they're not trying to be difficult. They're trying to convey that they're having a difficulty. And behavior is such a successful way to do that, because I don't, as a young person, have the emotional fluency to say it was quite an overstimulating morning in my house. Wait till I tell you. Instead, I come in and I shove someone off their chair, or I mutter under my breath, or I don't pay. I give you a behavior to elicit a response from you that reinforces how I'm feeling about myself. So if I'm feeling in bad way myself, I'll evoke that you yell at me or shout at me, and I'll go, yeah, there it is, layer it on, reinforcing how I'm feeling. Yeah, exactly. And don't we all love to be right? So, and I do think that what that child needs more than anything in that moment is, come here, I need a helper.
Yeah.
I know you can do that. To give me something that is very tangible to be praised for, really practical, and not just you're a great kid, because that's too vague and generic. But that's brilliant. You really helped me by doing that, by handing out those or collecting crayons or whatever it is. You really helped me. And I think that one small thing in the morning could be enough to turn that kid's day around.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah, it's connection.
And it's so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so powerful to be able to do that. We are in such a privileged position that we are able to do that for a child. And we are so lucky that we can, use those tiny strategies that aren't actually tiny. They might seem that, would you mind collecting the crayons there for me? And to turn a child's day around, I mean, it's such a privilege, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And I mean, and look, you're not going to catch it all the time, because there's one of how many sitting there. But if you're getting it more than you're not, good enough really is good enough here. I don't want anyone thinking, oh my God, I have to be like an emotional meerkat scanning the classroom for who's having a good day or a bad day. Where are they all at? Not at all. The bad days usually let themselves be known. And that said, I would always look for, there's always the child whose name comes easy. You don't even have to turn around and that child is up to something. But that child gets their name called a lot. They get acknowledged a lot. But there's always think about the child whose name never gets called. Because I would always be curious about the child who's going beneath the surface, and what kind of a strategy is that, and is there a way of connecting with that child? Because one needs to come down, one needs to come up, but that's play, isn't it? It's this regulatory roller coaster where you're doing this wave.
Just going to say that play is such, like as you've said, it's such a great way of connecting. So if that child has gone under the radar by playing and by observing and by being with them and enjoying them, we may actually change their day without realizing we have done it.
Exactly.
Yes, there is the child who you go, here, will you collect those crayons? Would you go on a message for him? Because I know they need it. But there's another child there who has gone under the radar, who is just so quite, like you say, the child whose name is never called. But by engaging in the playful and play-based learning, rather than sit there, read the chapter, do the 20 questions, I'm not going to change their day by doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas
No.
you may through playful learning or
And
just child-led play.
do you know, that's why I think we're
Mm.
so privileged that we have child play in our
Yes.
curriculum,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we get to let them play, and suddenly it's not all on me as
Yeah.
the teacher.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're doing it for each other.
Yes.
And it's just,
Yeah.
I'm like a broken record, because well-being is such a buzz at the moment, and
Oh, yeah.
we're required to have it at the core of our ethos.
Yeah.
And for me, what I always say is, we need the first step, the foundation for well-being in our schools is play, and particularly that child-led play. So let's get that up and
Yeah.
running, like really, really well. And then we can talk about all the other stuff
Yeah.
that we want to teach children. But until we establish that and value that, teachers, parents, and the children themselves valuing that, I feel like we're not maximizing the potential that we have at our disposal.
I totally agree. And playing with play, that there will be days where you're going to bring a lot of rhythm and synchrony and clapping games and mirroring activities and movement and stamping, because we know that rhythm and synchrony activate the parts of the brain associated with emotional regulation. So when they're all feeling it all over the place, higgledy-piggledy, the best thing you'll do is get up and have them all dance for 3 minutes. Have a little classroom disco. And they won't see it coming. It'll be unexpected. And sitting down, you're getting them more into that. They won't all be exactly the same, but within that window of tolerance or that zone of optimal arousal, having a good dance before and after transitions, dancing your way in, dancing your way out is a great way for kids to reestablish synchrony and connection with each other. And I think we would underestimate that wouldn't count as part of the play curriculum. Of course it does. It absolutely does. But I also think giving them that free play you're describing there, it's also an experience of low demand activity when they've had to follow a lot of adult led instruction. This is where they get to, okay, I'm in the driving seat, and they get to do that. But it's also allowing them to assimilate the learning of their day, to integrate it and process it and bring it into, tangible understanding. So they're not on the DOS or they're on a break from learning now that they're playing. They're actively learning while they're playing.
And you've hit on the DOS. As a teacher,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would often feel like I'm on the DOS here, because
Yeah.
they're playing and I'm just sitting down playing with them.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's active learning.
Yeah.
And that
Makes
goes
sense.
for children of all ages, from junior infants to 6th class.
I'd love to be thinking about it in secondary schools as well. Wouldn't it be a joy to have play breaks built into the secondary school curriculum? But, let's start and strengthen the base and grow it from there, like we said at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I just think, as parents, we're all so lucky to have teachers who are invested in our children as much as we are and who want these outcomes for them. And I do think being able to do that through play is a privilege.
Yeah,
Yeah, such a privilege.
absolutely.
Joanna, thank you so much. Before we let you go, we have a little bit of playfulness we'd like to bring your way. We have 5 questions we'd like to ask you.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. What was your favorite thing to play with as a child?
I loved making homemade perfume out of water and the petals from the flowers in the garden. I'd make jars of homemade perfume.
Oh, so lovely.
If you had a stick to play with, what would it become?
A magic wand.
What is a playful habit that you never grew out of?
Oh, that's such a good one. Actually, my playful habit I never grew out of is making time to play. It has changed as I've grown up, but I do make time. I do crafty needle felting classes to make little furry animals. I'm not craftily gifted. I just enjoy it. So I still do kind of wacky, whimsical things. So I never grew out of whimsical play.
Fabulous. Gorgeous. And who nurtures or nurtured your playfulness?
My mom, I grew up in a very playful house actually, and my mom would have encouraged a lot of play. I remember that she would make out of, Tunnocks tea cakes, the foil of the Tunnocks tea cake. She would twist those and make them into foil roses. And we'd be all going, who's going to get the rose? And she would, be very creative, very nurturing, a nurture player. But we also used to have these epic family water fights. So, yeah, there was a lot of that growing up in a big family.
Oh, that's so
Amazing.
gorgeous. And our last question is, what is a small joy that you look forward to every day?
Well, is it a small joy? I don't know if it's a small joy, but actually hearing about my little one's day,
Yeah.
I'm lucky that she's a kid who comes home and tells everything, so she's full of stories, and I just love how she sees the world, her world in school, how she explains it and describes it. I really look forward to the chat, the download, we call it,
Yeah.
the daily
That's
download. That's
lovely
my
joy.
joy.
Lovely joy. Joanna, thank you so much for speaking to us. You are so insightful, you're so inspirational and so encouraging, I think,
Yeah.
for adults,
Yeah.
not just teachers, for adults to become more playful.
Oh, it's been a
Oh,
privilege.
thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. It went by in a blink.
Yeah.
It did, it really did.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joanna, for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. That was a really insightful episode.
We hope you're enjoying these conversations on the Playful Lens. If you are enjoying them, make sure to share the podcast with your friends and your colleagues. And make sure to follow us on social media channels. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a rating as well.